Hey everyone, Andrew Carruthers here, Education Director for Samvia. Today I want to talk to you about 3 important things when cutting a one-length haircut. You have 3 options when cutting the one length: to either use our fingers to hold the section, to use the comb to hold the section, or possibly even brace the hair against the skin to cut the section. All 3 are beneficial, and you're going to really find that people are very polarized on which one they support. At Samvia, we think there's a purpose for everything, and we want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to make the best decision. So let's talk about the first option. First option is to be cutting in our fingers. Now, when we're talking about a one length, what we want to try and do is cut hair at the lowest elevation possible at natural fall. So what happens when I put my fingers in? Am I at natural fall? No, I'm not. So when we put our fingers in, the compromise that we take with a one length is we add a touch of elevation to the hair. Now, in a certain situation, like when I'm doing more of a texturized perimeter, that's not going to be a big deal because I'm going to be going in and maybe doing like a point cut technique. So when I'm cutting in the fingers, a lot of times I'm looking for actual softness to mirror with the elevation that I'm increasing in the finger. So whenever we're cutting in fingers, we're also adding an element of tension to the hair. And what tension does is it brings the hair out of its natural state. So again, between the elevation and the tension, if we're coming in and doing more of a point cut technique, when I release that tension, you can see that the hair pops up and goes back to its natural position. So the tension is also adding an element of softness to it. Now, the downside is when the hair goes back to natural position after you've cut, you may have some things that show up on the perimeter because of the shape of the natural hairline that you have to come back in and refine. That's really easy to do though, because you already have a nice line established, and what you can do is just come through and now just refine any of those hairs that are popping out from underneath your perimeter. So high tension, a little bit of elevation from holding in fingers is going to give you a softer line. Another option is to come in and hold it in comb. Now, when cutting in comb, you can see I have a lot less tension. I'm cutting in the wide teeth of the comb, and what's nice is I'm using the Samvia long cutting comb here in an ivory color, and you can see I have a nice contrast to the dark hair. So this gives me a killer visual line to work from. When I work this way, and let's say I'm coming in and doing a little bit stronger, more blunt technique when I'm cutting, I allow the hair to retain more strength. So again, when we use the wide teeth of the comb to brace the hair, we have the least amount of elevation possible, and we have very, very low tension, so we're going to create a very crisp, very solid line to our one length. Very different from using our fingers. The final option I find very beneficial when I'm cutting very short bobs, and that is actually taking the hair and pressing it in and down and against the nape. Now, I rarely do it with this large of a section. Primarily, I'm mainly doing it just with the first section along the hairline. By taking and bracing with that finger, what I do is I create almost a slight undercut action to the line. So you get a very, very solid line, but what happens is because that outside hair is kind of being elevated the opposite direction, when it comes back into natural fall, what you have is a natural undercut to it. So it leaves a very clean, crisp line, especially around really short hairlines that have erratic growth patterns. And in fact, what I'll do a lot of times is even if I do the rest of the haircut in my fingers or even in comb, the final step in refinement is taking the hair, pressing it against the nape again, and seeing if anything pops out around that bottom, and I'll just remove that little bit of excess to create a really nice clean surface to my bobs. So maximum tension with a little bit of elevation comes from cutting in fingers. No tension, no elevation comes from wide teeth of the comb. And then to really help control erratic perimeters and create that just touch of undercut element, we're going to take the finger and brace against the skin. Practice those 3 different techniques on your next bob and see the difference between each result that you see. And if you have someone tell you there's only one way to do it, go to the next class, because I guarantee if you're open-minded and you see all the different options and you know how to utilize them, you're going to be a better and stronger hairdresser. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Sam Vita.